how do I live a good life, right?
Uh, do what you love.
Hmm.
Don't be pressured by other people to do something that
Hmm.
is seen as better. And also, everyone brings their own thing to this world, and it's just you're gonna have to find it. You may not think you bring anything to the world, but everyone really does bring something. I don't think to go video games. There's no non-player characters or NPCs in this world. As much as we joke about it, there are.
Hmm.
Everyone is a person. Everyone has something about them that makes them tick, and everything has something special about them. So there's a lot of like fights, a lot of
Okay.
crazy stuff that happens, but overall, I like it. It's really nice.
Hmm.
It's a good experience.
Okay, cool. So I guess I could relate a lot. I don't know. My school wasn't that big, maybe 800 to 1,000 people. It was also a public school here in Canada. Um, I'm wondering if there were fights. I don't think there were a lot of fights. Like how, like there's a fight every week or every day, or how would you?
But a lot of the people who are fighting got suspended, so there
Okay.
used to be like fights almost every day, maybe every few days.
And are you glad with the actions the school has taken? Like, does it feel
Uh,
better now?
yeah, it is nice. There's a lot less. There used to be a ton of stoppages in the hallway, where
Hmm.
like you would be trying to get to a class, and then a bunch of people would just be going at it, and it's not very nice to have
Hmm.
happening.
Damn, I can't figure out this camera thing. Stoppages. So
Yeah.
do you? I guess do you feel more safe now? Because I assume, have you ever been in a fight? You probably don't want to be in one, right?
No, I have not been in a fight
Okay.
ever.
Yeah, I've never been in a fight either. Um, Interesting. So I'm 27 years old. So I guess I'm 13 years older than you. Almost double your age. Close. 3 years off. Uh, I'm just trying to remember what it was like for me when I was 15. I guess one question for you: are you able to picture or imagine what kind of life you want at say age 27, like when you're my age, 13 years from now, basically
God,
doubling your lifespan?
there's a lot of paths I could take.
Mm-hmm.
I see myself maybe exploring more programming because
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy that, but I don't know much about it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe going more into teaching because I enjoy that. Yeah, I don't really can't really see myself in a definitive picture of myself in the future.
Interesting. Do you have any programmers or teachers that you look up to as like role models or people that you want to be more like? Like I think of Coach Cupcake, for example, as a good teacher.
Um, let me think.
Mhm.
No, I It's a really good question. I don't actually know. I could probably think of a few.
Mhm.
I really look up to a lot of educational league YouTubers.
Mhm.
For example, Coach Cupcake. There's
Mhm.
also this jungler when I used to play jungle, a YouTuber named Virkaiyu, who made incredibly good, concise guides with very nice editing. So
Mhm.
I kind of would like to replicate that.
Mhm.
As, yeah, because it's impressive. They teach a very difficult game to people in a very good way. So.
Interesting. Yeah, it is a very complex, deep game, and making guides like that. Like I loved Coach Cupcake's guides for that reason. Even though I'm an AD carry player, he's still, I'm just gonna use the sunlight. It's like, yeah, I can tell the lighting's pretty bad. But yeah, he basically he broke down the lane in such a way that even as an ADC, all of the support concepts were applicable. Like learning Enchanter versus Engager, this is what you want to do with the wave state and the lane. And I'm like, yeah, as an ADC, I control the wave state because I choose when to last it or when to hit minions or not. Therefore, I should understand these things. But I didn't even know that they existed until I came across his videos, that you could think about enchanters and engagers in different matchups. So, what were
Yeah.
some key things that Virkaiyu covered in the jungle that were there any concepts that you came across you were like, wow, this is a breakthrough and changes the way that I look at jungling as a whole?
His concepts on vertical jungling,
Uh
such
huh.
as where if this happens less, of course, but there's an invade on one side of the jungle.
Mm-hmm.
They sort of split the map where one
Yes.
jungler is entirely on the top of the map, one jungler is entirely on the bottom side
Mm-hmm.
of the map, and also concepts like lane pressure, things like where you're gonna go, jungle tracking, basic stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like 24 CS is a full clear, that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. That stuff which is incredibly helpful to me as a support. He also plays support, so he doesn't make direct guides about support, but there's sort of a the concepts are there of
Mhm.
roaming and pressuring them out. That I
And I've
think are
noticed
very
this. Like, did you know Core JJ? He actually played jungle before he swapped to support. Like a lot of support
cool.
and jungle players. Huh? Core JJ? Do you know?
Yeah, he actually has a really good YouTube video on
Mhm.
supports.
He
Um,
does. Really interesting.
yeah, it's
Cool.
all in Korean, but he has an English translation and he explains it better than I've heard some people explain it in English, which I think is very interesting.
Yes, I do. Even Arrow. I used to like Arrow's guides, and some of them were translated from Korean to English at that time when he was making those guides, when he was at the top of his career. So I do think there's a lot we can learn from the Eastern side of their philosophy and mentality, because it seems like they approach the game in some fundamentally different ways. They look for beauty in laning. They look for, I guess, a certain kind of. They have very high standards for themselves, which I really like, because I think a lot of Western players they accept limitations that don't really exist physically. They're just accepting mental limitations that they can break past if they were more ambitious, which I think a lot of the Eastern players are, right? They don't hold themselves. I think they focus on the intrinsic mastery rather than just putting limitations on what they can achieve. And they find that they can go very far. And this is something Coach Cupcake has talked about as well. So it's a great idea. Have you learned any interesting mindset things from Virkaiyu, either directly or even like through
Um,
osmosis, like from the way he looks at the game and you learned like, oh, I want to think more that way?
I've learned a lot about my view of the meta I have, which is like a very,
Mm-hmm.
which is also I don't I like he Verkayu avoids meta picks. Like he plays orange jungle, which
Mm-hmm.
is not very meta, but it's sort of like this I just don't really view the meta in the same ironclad way and more of a like some things just aren't made to work and whatever, but some things can and it's fun to try those things out. That's why I watch a lot of Happy Chimes.
I know
He does
Happy Chimes. Yeah, the off meta guy. I even saw him tweet at Phroxzon. You know Phroxzon, right? The lead designer for Riot?
no, I actually do not.
Okay, interesting. Because 7 years ago he made Leaguecraft 101, which was one of the series that like helped me think about deliberate practice and want to start learning key skills to improve my laning. Um, and that was 7 years ago. He didn't work at Riot then. He started working at Riot more recently. So it's interesting how he made a series 7 years ago, educationally delving into these things. And he had something called UNSW LOLSOC, which I think is like University of North South Wales or something, or like someplace in Australia, I think. And then he was making actual lectures of him delving into league concepts live in like a classroom with like slides and everything, like a professor. And I was like, huh, that's really cool.
Yeah, that does seem really interesting actually.
So somehow his passion for the game 7 years ago and creating this content and exploring the ideas and making lectures just for fun somehow led to him becoming lead balance designer at Riot Games. But I saw basically Happy Chime Noise's tweet to Phroxzon because Phroxzon was just tweeting about how he likes thinking about off meta stuff and understanding the meta, right? And what can work within the meta but isn't popular, meaning it's effective but nobody's figured out that it's popular. It hasn't spread, and there's so many things like that, right? Like Orange Jungle might be really good, but it's not popular, so we don't know. And I think a lot of people rely on popularity or consensus rather than like objective qualities of wait,
Yeah.
this just makes sense in the game with the way the game is designed and the rules of the game. But it seems like you're also interested in figuring out things that other people haven't figured out. Innovation.
Yeah, I do like that. I've like tried a lot of really weird picks.
Mm-hmm. What are some examples?
Uh, I played like a lot. I think I played who was let me think.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
You can always take your time to think, by the way. Silence is not an issue.
I played Scion ADC, which
Mm-hmm.
did not go very well, but it
Mm-hmm.
was pretty fun. I wanted to play Scion. I played like a. I'd been watching a lot of the Baus, so I played like an Inting Karthus
Mm-hmm.
ADC and would.
I, I've liked Bowser's videos on like Karthus, Scion, also Rammus. Like Rammus top seems
Oh
really
my god,
cool.
so funny.
Like he does, and the thing about his strategy is that he knows the difference between good deaths and bad deaths, right? And he talks about them on stream. He says like, "Hey, that death cost them way more than it cost me to die. So I'm really glad that they dedicate all that to kill me." And he also realizes he could have potentially played better and survived and still wasted a lot of their resources. And other times he says his deaths are bad. And he talks about this idea of mismatching his recalls with other people, right? So that he actually wants the lane to be uninteractive. So he wants to recall when the enemy is coming back to lane. Then he wants to come back to lane when the enemy is recalling, and so on. So he can get his farm and get his weak side potential and get stronger without having to interact with the enemy laner. That's why I think he plays these scaling tanky type people, or I guess Karthus is scaling in a different way, right? But he plays in such a way that if he can get resources and trade resources, neutralize the lane, he comes out ahead in the long run with his playstyle.
I definitely agree with that.
Mhm.
Really fascinating to watch.
Yeah.
Um,
What else do
uh,
you like watching?
I like watching, honestly, any of the really good players or
Hmm.
whatever. I
Yeah.
like watching, I mean, Good Cupcake, of course. There's not that many good supports that really actively stream
Mm.
uh as much, but
What about
I,
Keria's VODs? I think there's YouTube VODs of like the Korean pros from their streams, but they
yeah,
stream on other platforms like Baidu and stuff.
yeah, there's also like channels such as like one I was interested in watching, like just like an auction support or something playing
Okay,
against Pike.
interesting.
It was a very interesting lane. And then the people who did like the VOD collections and stuff. And
Yeah.
then yeah, I don't know. I watched this guy named, I think it's Bizzleberry. Let me
Bizzleberry, I haven't heard of him.
um let me check YouTube. He's basically does like support VODs, and
Hmm.
he just talks through his like the way. Yes, so he basically just he's like a support, he's like a sort not like a challenger. I think he's like master grandmaster,
Hmm.
and he basically just like goes plays games and goes through his thought process while he's playing them. It's very
Hmm.
interesting.
Okay. Yeah, I used to like Bwipo, right? He used to stream top lane, and I didn't even play top lane, except like very early on, like in the first few years I played League. I was playing ADC, but I liked Bwipo because he explained concepts inside lanes, like when he was pushing a wave, why he was doing it. So all that applies to ADC, wave management. But yeah, I wanted to go back real quick to Phroxzon and his thing of like, he did something 7 years ago. Clearly, it showed passion, and probably over those 7 years, he did a lot of other things that I can't see. Like, I'd love to have him on the show and ask him what was his path from creating those lectures to then being lead balance designer, right? What was that 7 year journey like? Or maybe it was even longer than that, right? Maybe he started 9 or 10 years ago doing other invisible things that he was interested in. So for you, I'm wondering, would you ever want to get into the League of Legends scene, like professionally, whether as a coach, as as a player, however it might be?
I would really like to make educational content
Okay,
for League. Like
okay,
that was one thing I could do professionally for it would be to make educational content.
hmm,
Um, Especially just getting just like it's interesting because it's good to have a collection of YouTubers that
yeah,
provide a good educational, but right now support is basically like kind of almost a void. You have like Coach Cupcake, you've got Skill Captain and Pro Guides, but I mean they're not very good.
hmm,
And then you've got Low Poly, but he doesn't play do too much. And then you've got a lot of VODs, but like someone who presents it in the way Virkaiyu does, which if you ever watch his videos, they're like very well edited. They're so short, maybe
hmm,
20 minutes max.
hmm,
He gets through a lot of his points really well. Is very like eye catching. You sort of are engaged the whole time.
hmm.
Yeah, that's why I really look up to him because his style of guides is really, really good. And
So it's really well designed. Okay, interesting. So it would be hard. So how good do you think Virkaiyu would be at presenting something live?
I'd assume he's pretty good. He,
Hmm.
like a bunch of others, has run like boot camps and stuff. So
Hmm.
yeah. Um,
Okay, so you'd be interested in that. So one of my startups, Midnight Legion Esports, something we're actually doing that I've started is I'm collaborating with a couple of different coaches on creating slides and trying to come up with a presentation format. So with one of them, who's our organization's head coach, Sama. Actually, Sama is known for having developed a lot of good like European junglers, from what I know, in the
ooh,
scene.
cool.
Sama, here I can send you his Leaguepedia real quick. I'll pull it up. Sama Leaguepedia. Here it is. I'm linking it to you now.
Alrighty.
I guess actually I'll put it in the no context voice chat as well. And let me also look up Virkaiyu real quick. But yeah, interesting enough, by the way, my co-founder Evan in the esports startup, he actually knows Virkaiyu quite a bit. He's been coached by Virkaiyu a lot. I think some of our first earliest streams were like Virkaiyu did a watch party in his Discord and stuff like that. So it makes me wonder, like, I guess the scene is smaller than I realize, right? Everybody's connected. People are interested in each
Yeah.
other's ideas and they see the quality in things. Because I was trying to make a list of coaches who I think are innovating in the scene and who are not accepting the status quo as it is. Because esports right now, there are lots of problems, like, players showing up drunk to scrims and players valuing partying over, improving their career, or players just doing what their coaches tell them, showing up for scrims, and that's it. They're not really that interested in actually improving on their own or thinking on their own. Whereas in the Eastern culture, like, it's like mastery of the skill is considered fulfillment rather than going out and drinking and partying in spare time. And it's not that either is worse than the other. I think I just prefer that over this. Like, I prefer the idea of taking on responsibility and purpose and meaning in life, fulfillment, long-term joy, rather than short-term pleasure. Because at least personally, I found that short-term pleasure is not sustainable. And it gets boring pretty quickly for me anyway. And it's not meaningful. It creates a void in my soul, basically. That's how I'd put it.
Yeah, that's pretty reasonable.
Hmm.
So it's actually kind of funny. Like in my high school, we had an
Hmm.
esports team,
Hmm.
but it was pretty poorly organized. So
Hmm.
I ended up playing for the Valorant team, which did not go very well because my aim is terrible.
Your
And
aim
I
is
was on,
terrible. Okay.
yeah, I was on the League of Legends team, but
Hmm.
we didn't get to play because we didn't have enough people. Because people didn't. It's not like sports are in our school, like sports.
Hmm.
Not esports. They're treated with a lot more. You gotta
Structure. Yeah.
practice and all this. Well, the esports club was sort of like, we got a club, we
We're playing games.
yeah,
Yeah, this is what I want esports to be more rigorous. And I can see the teams and the coaches like CL and, Peter Dunn and EG. Like Peter Dunn found Jojo Pune for EG. And now that's a golden goose. And then Peter Dunn went to Europe to Team Heretics. And all these people are actually treating it like a business, like an industry, like a serious thing. And that's what I was building with my team. But then I stopped playing League of Legends. I started the podcast and quit my job and focused on all this stuff. But I really value rigorousness and seriousness because I find that it doesn't actually take away the fun. It actually adds a lot more fulfillment and reward to the fact that in a disciplined, structured way, you're trying to learn and improve at something as a group, as a team, right? It's like being on a basketball team. You improve together and you feel great and you start to win more. And there's this whole cycle of fulfillment and self improvement. So I want to figure out how to bring that to League of Legends at an amateur level as well, like gold, plat. What level do you play at, by the way?
uh, low bronze. I do
Low
not play
bronze.
unranked. I've
Okay.
played, but let me check actually. I played way too much League. I played
Hmm.
already 3 days in this season of time, and then
How many
and I
games is
missed
that, roughly?
183
Okay,
season.
I played like 105 games in the first. I was playing 5 games a day basically. So in 25 days, I played about 100 plus games or
Oh
so.
wow.
Yeah.
I've only been playing since like last year, so
Okay, so
I
you're
just
relatively new to the game. Interesting. What
yeah.
What do you think drew you in? What got you so interested in it as such a new player?
It's funny. So
Hmm.
first game I ever played, I played as Sona. I
Hmm.
did not like it. It wasn't very fun. I think I was like just solo laning, and I never touched the game for a while. And then I started playing with my brother, who
Hmm.
plays ADC as well, actually.
Hmm.
Um, and I played a ton. Slowly went up to draft pick. Kind of took a break from the game, but I I don't. I just drew it to me because like it it I really like well personally I like playing support in Overwatch too. I like playing
Hmm.
support in general, and it looked like really fun. It looked complex and interesting and
Hmm.
in depth. That all that and
Yeah.
yeah.
Have you ever played Heroes of the Storm, that MOBA?
Yes, I have actually. I
Because
played
it's, yeah,
a lot of bots, but
a lot
never
of
with
bots.
players though.
Really interesting. Okay, because I played HOTS quite a bit, and then I played League, and then I played Dota 2, and then I came back to League recently, or relatively recently. But I remember I really liked also playing the medic in Team Fortress 2, and his gun would latch onto people with a healing ray, and I think
Yeah.
Mercy in Overwatch does the same thing. I haven't
Oh
played
yeah,
her.
it
Yeah,
was one of my favorite
yeah, I
Overwatch
like
heroes.
playing Diva in Overwatch and some Reinhardt and stuff. I like trying them out. I think I liked Genji. Was it Genji? Yeah, Genji's also in Heroes of the Storm, and he's interesting there. But what's interesting to me is like When I came to League, support really wasn't a thing for me. I guess it was more like I like being at range. I like kiting. Like doing damage. My mechanics aren't that good, so people even recently were telling me you should consider jungle or support because you're such a intellectual player, right? Rather than a hands player. But I realized, well, why not go where I'm weak? Why not start doing drills and improve my mouse accuracy and just list out what it'll take to become good mechanically as an ADC and then learn it. And I was getting coaching with Coach Cupcake and I was getting better. So I guess that's just a point I'd like to make for any listeners out there is like, just because you suck at something doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. If you intrinsically enjoy it, then you will get better than the people who are already starting off good but not really enjoying it nearly as much as you. So if it's intrinsically fulfilling, then go for it. Like break it down into skills and learn how to learn them because you can learn anything you want to learn. There are no physical limitations, except the laws of physics. So they're not preventing you from getting better at mechanics or anything else. So
Yeah.
um, sorry,
Yeah,
what was the point we were on before I went on that?
I think we were talking about like.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, we were talking about like Heroes of the Storm and.
Ah, yes, medic and all of that. And then you went into support, and support was complex and deep, and it is for sure. Like Coach Cupcake's video showed me that support is like anyone who thinks support's an easy role, I think they're wrong. I do think there are. I've talked to a couple of interesting like ERL coaches who have talked about how like support is a role that is inflated in a certain way. So, for example, I could get to masters on ADC and then spend a year or two learning support, and then maybe get to GM or challenger on support. But if I want to be a great ADC, then I might as well go for challenger on ADC, right? It might be harder, but it's a more worthy goal. Like hardness does not mean something should not be pursued. It just means that you need to know that you really want it. You have to have the dedication and persistence and drive.
The fulfillment of playing like.
Yes, intrinsically. Yeah.
I like to play typically a lot of engagers because they're
Okay.
not very meta, but
Uh-huh.
it's enjoyable to play. But
What are
I
your
like to
favorite
play,
engagers? Like Nautilus, Rel,
I mean, it's less of
Leona?
an engager. He's more of an enchanter engager, but I really like Tarek.
You like Tarek? Okay. Oh, Manny from School of Support also plays a lot of Tarek. Maybe I can connect you with him at some point. But yeah,
Yeah,
he's interesting. Have you seen any of his? I guess he doesn't participate that much in the community, but I know him.
I think he just came back, right?
He just came back? Okay. I mean, yeah, he's dealing with some stuff in his life. But yeah, I want to get him on the podcast at some point.
He said he wanted to take a break from competitive league and then he
Focus on
was
his life. Yeah,
pop
I
back.
helped him write that apology. I think there was some because he said it's not a secret, but he wanted people to ask about it first. But basically, he's dealing with an addiction in life and some other issues like sleep deprivation. So he just wants to get his life in order, then he can come back to League. But I remember he invited me to his server, Manny's server, that had a bunch of Tarek notes. He's very detailed, probably like you. And I'm actually curious, have you ever done the Myers-Briggs like test, like an online version of the test?
I did the 16 personalities, but never
Is it-
Myers-Briggs.
No, that's based on Myers-Briggs, 16 personalities. Do you know which one you are? Because I'm guessing you might be INTP, but I don't know for
I
sure.
think I was something close to that. I was whatever the
Close.
mediator is.
Oh, the mediator. Hold on, let me look that up. Mediator. That might be INFP, but
Yeah,
I'll
I
check.
think I'm INFP.
That is INFP. So instead of thinking, you are feeling. Interesting. And so my test results switch between INTP and INFP. But one of my episodes was actually a 7-hour conversation with my friend Justin, who is an INTP. And I guess I need to define this for people because that was some of the feedback I got that people don't know about Myers-Briggs. So 16 personalities in Myers-Briggs is psychological, like a psychometric test. It's a model to evaluate personality types and split people up by various traits. It is deeper than most people think, but I will also give a disclaimer that to many people, there is no basis in science. And it's true, there isn't really a basis in science. It's a psychological model like many other psychological models. And the whole industry of psychology has been going through a replication crisis. So I would say that there's a problem of science with most psychology. It's not nearly as scientific as, say, physics, rigorous in that way. But so to some people, they view it as astrology, a confirmation bias engine where you can just feed in, you read what it is and it can fit to you and apply to you. But I think my friend Justin, he's been studying it for 13 plus years and he's found ways to use it to help him in his life. So that's why it was useful for me. So he said that people tend to answer the online tests the way that they want to be, right? So that's how I could have gotten INFP, especially because I developed my empathy and my feelings over time. But I did it by thinking about them, by philosophizing about them. So I might still be an INTP, even though I got INFP recently, right? So for you, you might be INFP. We'll see. It depends. The test alone does not give you the answer, right? It's just like a guide. And that's why I want to figure out how I can get an in-person test with a psychologist at some point, because I think that will be higher quality. because the psychologist will also be judging how you answer the questions, and they will be changing the questions over time to adjust to what they're seeing in yourself. So if they see that you're lying to yourself or deceiving yourself, they'll try to push a little harder and try to get to the truth and things like that.
Yeah, I think I was like very close to being an INTP too. I don't
Okay.
entirely.
Ah, because that test shows you're like 45% thinking, 55% feeling, and
Yeah,
therefore if you're really close, then you know that you were on the edge. Yeah.
yeah, I think I was on the edge. I don't entirely remember. I took it a while ago. I think like last summer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I did it as part of like this counselor thing.
Mm-hmm. Because what I've been talking about on the podcast episodes a lot is that I seem to have interviewed a lot of INTPs. So that would be intuition. Oh, no, sorry. The I is introverted, which means that my mind is thinking inside. I'm more focused on the world of abstractions, my experience, my ideas, things like that, inside myself. Not the kind of introversion of um, being socially drained and things like that. That's different, or recharging alone. And then the N is for intuition, as opposed to sensing, I think, or yeah, sensing. So basically, the I is introverted rather than extroverted. So extroverted people, if you're an ENTP, for example, then you would be focused more on the outside world, things around you, your surroundings. And then the N is intuition, which is that you see patterns, you draw conclusions between disparate facts. So maybe you can tell me if any of this strikes out. Feel free to interrupt me, Harrison. Like, if any of this stands out to you as like, oh, I do that, or that seems like me. So intuition, your mind kind of goes all over the place. And I think Justin even told me, like, people with INTP often get diagnosed with ADHD. I was diagnosed with ADHD as a kid, or they get diagnosed as being on the spectrum, the autism spectrum. And so ASD, autistic spectrum disorder, whatever it is. But it's often a fundamental misunderstanding of how our minds work and how we're different. Like me and Justin can both forget to eat when we're doing work or thinking about things or absorbed in something. Or fantasy worlds can be more real to us than reality, like through reading books or novels or digging into video game lore or thinking about things or dreams or ideas. So the intuition part connects disparate facts, and then the way that we talk, we might use analogies a lot or go on tangents, but then we can come back. We learn how. The opposite of intuition would be sensing on that scale. And it's not binary, it's a gradient, like you pointed out. So I think sensors, they like clear, hard lines of evidence and lines of reasoning. So Myers Briggs has helped me deal with conflicts and friction with my co founders in various startups better as I understand how they're thinking differently from me, how they prefer data to be presented in a different way. They want plans and structure and reliability and routine. I want open endedness. I don't like limitations like that. I like to just do things and see what happens and evolve on them. So then, it helps me collaborate with them better and give them what they need and then ask for what I need as well. That's the value I find in Myers Briggs.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I'll probably do some more thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And fully relate. I heard you and it's
Ligea, yep.
Ligea, talking about the
I think she pronounces it Ligeia. So you can use whatever pronunciation you want. It's from an Edward Allan Poe poem. So you can pronounce it however you feel comfortable. Yeah.
Ligeia is a yeah. I heard. I was like just kind of there on their conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was very fascinating about containers and how it sometimes these like the Myers-Briggs stuff can contain people, but a lot of times it's also helpful for sort of getting an
Right.
idea of why things are. Because
Mm-hmm.
for me personally, it helped me understand a lot of the emotions I have
Mm-hmm.
surrounding like empathy and whatever that would
Mm-hmm.
come from all that, and also understanding myself better, and which is very important.
Yeah, it is. Like self understanding is a lifelong journey, it never stops. And I do think that that's why I'm not so sure about my ADHD diagnosis, because they didn't even do it by the DSM 5 checklist. They did it by some kind of weird brain scan, and it was some kind of consultant for BC Children's Hospital. So I looked at the brain scan recently and I was like, this looks really correlative and not causative. There's no explanation. Like, I like Thomas Haz's idea, roughly, that, like, um, how can we know that it's a physical, biological brain problem if we cannot detect it at autopsy in a body? Right? So when I die and they cut open my brain and try to figure out did I have ADHD or autism or anything like that, and they can't tell from my dead body, then how do we know it's biochemical or physical? And what if actually mental illnesses are just people having problems of living with society because it's hard to collaborate with people and function together, right? What if it's just differences? Like homosexuality used to be in the DSM-5. It was considered a mental illness. Now we know it's not. So who knows? We might realize ADHD is not a mental illness. It's not brains being different fundamentally. It may just be that people's minds work differently. They think differently, and they process problems and data differently. And we can structure society to teach people more broadly and better, right? To understand them, design
Yeah,
curriculums that work for multiple people. Yep.
it's actually really interesting. We were talking about in my
Mm-hmm.
English class actually. We
Mm-hmm.
talked about like the process of othering, making something different.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. Maybe this
It's
mental
related.
some
Yeah.
mental illnesses have something to do with the process of othering. The sort of they're different or whatever, and
Yes.
maybe it's just a different way of thought that it can always be an interesting way to do it. I just because it seems probably like that makes more sense. It's just a different personality, not really a illness or anything.
Yeah, and I'm sure who knows, like we have 16 personalities now, right? That the Myers-Briggs model has. Who knows, like 20 years from now, we might figure out like a, I don't know, 192 personalities matrix or something ridiculously complex with like 8 axes or something crazy. Because the more axes you add, the more permutations come up, right? And by the way, I think othering is a good way to put it. I often thought about it as tribalization, but the othering concept is because I do think, and this is also so just to finish up on the N, the letters in the INTP, the T is for thinking, or the F would be for feeling, and that one should be fairly obvious to most people. And then the P is perceiving versus the J would be judging. So if you're perceiving, it means that you tend to explore ideas more and not judge them as much, and you're open to lots of different avenues of thought, and you're curious and interested in all these things. Whereas um, people who are judging may feel more stability when they don't have cognitive dissonance, right? So cognitive dissonance is having two competing or three competing or five competing ideas in your head and you're considering them all at once. And I've realized over time that I'm not as uncomfortable with that feeling as I used to be, and I actually enjoy it to some degree because it's kind of like I'm resolving a conflict actively in my head. I'm going through the process of learning, and it's fun. It's progressive as long as I make progress. Whereas I think a lot of people find that uncomfortable and they try to immediately resolve the conflict or discard one of the things or both of the things or get out of that situation because it's really uncomfortable. And so I think that's where the othering thing comes in. That's where we want to put things in boxes and label them. So when I bring up Myers Briggs or anything like that, I think people assume that I am, or some people assume that I am trying to label things. But I'm actually trying to actually create more distinction and understand more models and have more frameworks and more mental models because I've gone through so many over the course of my life that the more I go through, the more I realize that even the one I'm thinking about now is likely to change, and that's okay. That's fine. It just means I'm learning 10 different ways to look at the world, 20 different ways, 50 different ways, and then I can apply. I think it was Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's partner. He had this idea of mental models, or he at least expanded upon the idea of having lots of different mental models, learning from different people and books and sources, so that by the time you're 50 or 60 years old, you can approach the same problem 20 different ways. And one of those ways might work. So that's really cool. Um,
A very fascinating subject,
yeah.
um, for sure.
I just want to go back to what your interests were because you mentioned League of Legends, you mentioned the viola. Yeah, do you mind if we jump over to the viola? Tell me how it feels to play a musical instrument because I don't have mastery in any musical instrument really, or
Uh,
even close to it. I
so
haven't even. Yeah.
viola. Just
Oh, is it viola, not viola?
yeah, it's
Okay, viola.
I
Cool.
believe it's
Thanks.
Italian.
Oh, it is Italian. Yeah.
Um, it's a interesting instrument because
Mm-hmm.
it's like a bigger, heavier version of the violin. Its sound range is not entirely proportionate to its size, actually,
Uh huh.
which is something one of my friends told me.
Do you actually hold it in your hands or do you rest it on the ground? I know cellos rest on the
We hold it
ground.
like yeah, big
Or you
hands.
hold it like this instead of
Yeah.
because it's a little heavier, so you need more support
Yeah, we hold it like that, but it's not that much heavier. I mean, those things
than a
are
violin.
hollow. Like I could
Okay.
lift up a bass,
Okay.
um, and I'm not particularly strong, so
Yeah.
um, it's just the size, and it's an
So what did you mean
interesting.
by the sound range thing or the?
Uh, it's a
Mhm.
much deeper sound than
Okay.
and you would assume would be possible. Like
Mhm.
violins, which have an E string instead of a C string, and
Mhm.
the C string is a very deep and low noise,
Mhm.
and you typically get a better C string the bigger your viola gets, and
Mhm.
the E string is very high. Um, so
Interesting.
that's one key difference is how low or high we can go
So does
on
that
a
mean the viola has a higher, like a, what's the word, a broader range of notes that it can hit than a violin?
um
Like
that
more octaves or something?
the violin could definitely get. I think it's just
Higher
which
for like,
direction they're going in because the violin can get much higher
and the
and the
viola can
viola
get much lower.
lower. Yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of like you've got your bass, your tenor, your countertenor, your alto, what soprano, right? Like in singing, but now you've got instrumentation that fulfills different roles in a quartet or however it would be. So in the orchestra, what role does the viola play?
Typically we're playing like a supporting. I believe it's. I forgot the difference between melody and harmony. Um. Sort of a.
But you're playing the harmony.
Yeah, we're playing the harmony typically, and then we
Hmm.
sometimes join the melody with the cellos. Occasionally get our own piece to ourselves,
Hmm.
and but typically it's more of like a bass cellos and like second violins and second violins and violas playing uh the sort of parts together while the first violins go on their own
Hmm.
and the cellos and the bass are sort of linked up. At least that's one of the pieces we played. Um,
Interesting. Yeah, I'm trying to remember melody and harmony, and also I guess so. You're playing a supportive role, but do you get solo pieces sometimes? You said with the cellos, so you work with the cellos,
Sometimes, yeah, we actually had a solo on one of our pieces.
meaning a solo viola piece, meaning no other string instruments are playing, and you're just playing
Oh,
violas.
it was actually only one viola was playing, which
Only
is
one.
yeah,
Interesting. And so somebody composed that piece and designed it with that part in mind.
yep.
Like, and did you play that? Did you get to practice that solo?
We got to practice the solo, but someone else did. There's some really, really
Good.
very good kids in my orchestra. So
So you're kind of the understudy, you're the apprentice, and they're the master,
yeah,
quote unquote.
yeah,
They're not masters, but they're there. Like they're playing on stage live, and but you're studying with them, and your goal is to get progression and to get to that level. Yeah,
yep,
nice,
basically like that.
cool.
Yeah.
How do you feel when you're playing the viola at home or just practicing something? Do you ever
I
get into that flow state?
yeah, sometimes, but it's weird because it's just a lot of like going back.
Hmm.
Oh, I made a mistake there, and it's
Hmm.
sort of mentally noting your mistakes.
Hmm.
Oh, I didn't do the right fingering there. Oh, I should have done this with my bow. Oh, there's an accent there. All that, and sort of. Also, I spend a lot of time listening to songs to get a feel for how they flow,
Hmm.
which is very important for knowing some little bits that are hard to memorize. And it's just a lot of practice. But when you get in that flow state, it's like everything sort of land right, and you're kind of just going through the song. You never feel too rushed or too slow.
Hmm.
Yeah, which is could be tough to. Or it's almost like when I played a pretty fast piece. There were a lot of eighth notes. I had to like there would be moments where you're sort of just you you have your fingers are memorizing it and doing it faster than you can kind of actively think about what you're seeing. It's really interesting. It gets crazier when you're doing like 16th notes,
Hmm.
but it's really interesting. Like you have to do it. You can't just see it and then do it. You've got to just do it as you see it.
Right. I'm trying to relate this to my experience because I've never experienced that in the way you're describing. But do you ever do things while playing the viola that surprise you? Like you're surprised at what you just did?
Yeah. Typically, when I play like faster pieces or can go really high, because I just learned how to shift I, this is just a lot of musical jargon, but
Go for it. It's fine.
shift into like a higher, really high scale because I'm working on that tryout I told you about.
Hmm.
Um, so that I could not approach initially. It got super high and screechy, and it basically took me. Uh, but now I could do it, and I just it's like this weird moment where it's happened to me in video games. You put a lot of time in, and it just seems like you have nowhere to go, and then boom, you're there. Uh,
Interesting.
it's actually funny. It was when I used to be a Talia one trick. I played Talia jungle a ton,
Hmm.
and then I started playing her mid and support, and it was so much better. And it felt like I just understood the character better.
Hmm.
It was very weird. Um,
Sometimes it just takes a different angle to have a breakthrough in what's possible for something, right?
yeah,
Because it's probably as support, because I played against Talia support recently. I mean, I haven't played in weeks, but I have this memory of her just like me being terrified of every single stun that she could pull in. So, for people who don't know, listeners, Talia is a character in League of Legends, and she has a certain ability where there's an indicator placed on the ground where she puts a rock. She basically gets a rock to come out of the ground, and if I get hit by that ability, I'm probably dead. Even if I'm at 100% HP, health points, hit points. Even if I have my flash summoner spell to gain some distance and try to run away, I'm probably still dead because that setup combo from her is so strong. And if her partner in the lane, because the bottom lane is two versus two, two people versus two others. Man, the more I talk about League, the more I realize like there's so much to explain. You and
Yeah.
I are piggybacking on so much knowledge and jargon and concepts that we built upon that it's very hard to explain to someone who doesn't play the game. But it's still worth doing. It's still worth trying, and it'll track over time.
I mean, I use the term OTP, which is one trick pony,
Yeah,
which basically is playing one character for anyone that's viewing.
good
So,
catch. I forgot. Yeah, you did use that term. Yeah. So he was
and
playing just one character, and the game has like 162 plus champions, right? So
yeah,
being someone who plays one character is often advised by coaches, and I think that helps you learn fewer things at a time. I think Coach Curtis is the one who says like you're either learning the game or you're learning your champion. You can't be doing both at the same time.
yeah,
And I think that's probably true for life too. Like if you're trying to learn life, figure out your instrument, your not your instrument, your vehicle, your conduit. Like what are you going to use to learn life through? How are you going to experience more of life by mastering something or attempting mastery towards something? Whether it's the viola or League of Legends, or like for Daigo Umehara, it was Street Fighter. By the way, I wanted to show you this, Harrison. I just went to my dad's place and cleaned up a few days ago, and I brought this back with me. Let me see. I bought this a while back because I was really passionate about the shakuhachi, the Japanese flute. I love the sound it makes,
oh
but
wow,
it doesn't even. I've barely used it since I bought it. They even put in a handmade note, Kinkoryu Madake bamboo. So I want to ask, would you be willing to help me learn this instrument, even if it's just being like a motivation partner, just like going like, hey, did you do your 15 minutes of playing today? Or
uh,
because I think the most discouraging thing is I can't make a sound. Like I blow on it and nothing. Like I
uh,
don't know how to whistle, for example.
I don't know how to whistle either. My brother actually played flute,
He does.
but he doesn't play anymore.
Yeah.
But sure, I can help, but I don't know much about the instrument.
That's
As
okay. Just being someone who's passionate about music and staying in touch with me means that I'll be more passionate about following my musical journey, right?
yeah, like a lot of my musical thing has been fueled by multiple of my friends,
Hmm.
uh, who basically they've fueled a lot of my musical liking, and also watching people do it well makes me want to play music well.
Exactly. Yeah. So being in that space inspires you, just like being in League of Legends space inspired me to get better. Being in, the music space, even talking to you about music made me want to pull this flute out. Like I brought this back 2 days ago and I never opened it, right? So that's what I mean. This is why I love the podcast because I can never predict where a conversation will go in advance, and I don't want to either. A lot of people have been telling me you should have a topic list, you should try to control the structure. And I'm like, maybe you're right. Maybe that's how other people do it. But I like it better this way. And I think my guests do as well. So it's okay.
Yeah, it's more fun when it's free form, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe why I'm attracting the INTPs or the close to INTPs because we probably like freeform, unrestricted exploration and discussion of ideas. We don't like structure and routine. But maybe if I was inviting more S's or J's, and again, I'm not trying to box people in. I've met plenty of S's and J's who like freeform. They like the discussions we have. They like it, but they also get frustrated with me sometimes when I go on too many tangents. So, okay, how does this work? Maybe your brother can help me. Is he around?
Uh, and I don't know if he remembers because he played like one of the flutes goes like this. So
Oh,
I
that's
believe
like the Indian flute. That's like the bansuri. Okay,
yeah, you sort of have to.
purse
I
my
believe
lips.
it's some sort of like motion. You might have to look it up because I don't entirely understand. I've never played the only band instrument I've played is
Hmm.
like I played French horn in like
French
fifth
horn.
grade.
And
But
that one's easier to make a sound out of, probably.
yeah,
Less
you just
technical.
have to, like basically to make a noise out of it.
Yeah. When you started the viola, did you have any barriers that you had to overcome? Because for me, this is my barrier. If it takes me 2 weeks to learn this, it might be a really hard 2 weeks. But once I do that, everything else kind of gets a little easier. I can make a sound. I can feel motivated. I can see results. So I need to just
Actually,
get past that barrier.
a really weird story. I
Mm-hmm.
played viola in fourth grade,
Mm-hmm.
and then I stopped playing, and took band in fifth, and
Mm-hmm.
then I played. Um, I did dance in sixth grade, which was really random. And then I picked viola back up during the pandemic. So it
Hmm.
was very weird, all virtual, all that. And then I played um in then I played I picked it back up in 7th and then 8th and
Hmm.
then this year. And a lot of the people in my class have been playing for much more years than I have. So, and
Right.
I've been only playing for about 3, but pandemic and also my 8th grade, we didn't get to do as much as other classes did, and I didn't learn as much.
Because
So,
you were like learning from home or something, like
uh,
remotely, or
learning
something
from
else.
home in 7th and then in 8th, I was basically just completely like it wasn't a very serious class, and this has been the most
Ah.
serious it's been.
Okay, so
So,
basically your teacher was unstructured, unrigorous. Like
yeah,
they weren't trying to. And this is what
he
Coach Cupcake also had mentioned about like he was the best tennis player in his region for 2 years straight. No one could even come close. And then some of those pro tennis players who were competing, trying to beat him, I guess also came to league and played that, right? But they were unstructured, unrigorous, undisciplined. But he applied the same principles that he had learned in life, and he became good at league as well. And they didn't get that good. So it's the same thing. I think you're right. Like the teacher matters, the class matters. So you could be playing viola for 10 years and not be that good. But you could also be playing it for 3 years and be pretty good because you took a strict, you took a serious approach to it. You wanted to learn. You looked for your mistakes. You improved on them.
It's also like exposure. My class
Mhm.
wasn't as good, wasn't as
Exposure.
motivated.
Okay, and
Um,
that's true. If you have people around you all trying to get better, it's way more motivating than if you don't have that many people to collaborate with.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I've been working on like
Can you play us
get
something on the viola, or is it hard to like unpack and play?
uh I can try.
Okay,
Give
let's
me a
do it.
second.
Why not? Also, yeah, I failed at making a sound, but I'll try again. Actually, now that I've unpacked it once, it's easier to unpack a second time and try again.
Yeah, sometimes that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, just the first step, right? It was the
Take my
same with the podcast. Once I did the first podcast episode, it got easy. Whoops.
take my scarf off so I can actually play.
Cool.
It fits in well because then I'll have it all set up because I'm gonna practice later today.
Nice. How long do you usually spend practicing per day? 15, 30
Uh,
minutes, an hour, 2 hours?
Typically 30 minutes,
30 minutes.
maybe
Pretty good.
more.
That's pretty good. No, 30 minutes a day at anything will get you really good over time. It's
Uh,
the important thing is the consistency. Like even 30 minutes of league a day, one game a day with like a little bit of WOD review, like that would be pretty good. It would add up. I'm going to read this note out from them. Dear Vamsi, thank you very much for choosing. Oh, wow. Choosing of 1.8 Shakuhachi. I have tuned it very carefully. Tone was very nice. You can play 3 octaves easily. Bamboo material was very good. Responsible. I imagine I imagine it valued 500 to 800 US dollars. God bless you. Johnson. 8 1825 2021. Wait, what? I can't read this too well. But I should email this guy back. Like this is awesome. I love this note. And I've noticed a lot of the Eastern culture and handmade craftsmanship and all of that. There's a certain investment that they put into every piece of art they make. Like this note, the way that it's handcrafted.
you can see
Yes.
that in some
Yeah.
Western things, like a lot of the more expensive violas and violins crafted
I
are
mean, this
very.
wasn't that expensive though. I mean, I don't remember what I paid for it.
Yeah, there's also just a lot of like in like at least in music, there's a lot of craftsmanship and
Hmm.
pride in a lot of instruments. Like a lot of us name our instruments.
Really? I didn't know that. What's your viola's name?
My Vio's name is Claire because one of
Claire.
my friends named theirs boys' names, so I decided to add a little bit of diversity and name mine a girl's name. Also,
Okay.
it's a pretty good pun saying my music should be Claire.
Or it
Claire.
should be Claire. Yeah, I see.
Give me a
Okay.
sec. I'm gonna just pull up some music I've been working on.
Cool. So I had a friend by the way. He could sight read piano really well. Um,
Oh, it's not my clef. That's the problem. I can sight read. Uh, what is it? I can sight read. Um, alto, but not
oh,
treble.
interesting. It's harder to sight read at different ranges or scales. I didn't know that.
It's because it's I have to convert the notes.
Or you're doing a
So,
sort of what's
like,
the word? Transposing
so,
the
yeah,
notes yourself.
it's
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
the like normally I'm just gonna check if I'm in tune.
Discord isn't catching it for now. You might have to tune your sensitivity to have Discord catch the mic.
Oh yeah, give me 2 seconds.
Because Discord is used to tuning out things that aren't human voices when it's applying its algorithms.
I think I have the like oh, what is it again? Noise suppression.
Yeah, try turning that off.
Is
Yep, now it's getting detected. Try it out, yeah.
Wait, let me take off one headphone first.
Sure. Is this Titanic?
I'll check with my teacher if it's in tune or not. I don't entirely know.
Okay, no
I
worries.
think my D's out of tune, but
So you do know, or you have some idea. You have an intuition.
some idea of it.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'm doing this audition for my class,
Mhm.
and basically I have to do scales that go kind of like
What is that? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do?
like
Mhm. It's
that's
cutting out on Discord, but it sounds really good for some of the parts. And also, I
that's
think the audio quality is not ideal.
my mic isn't particularly very good.
That's okay. I'm wondering, yeah, maybe in the future we can look to set up some kind of. I ordered like a portable recorder, like an H4n, and apparently that's actually pretty good for recording orchestra and music as well, like not just voices and
Yeah, I
interviews.
gotta do that. So that was a 4 octave scale.
Okay,
Let
four
me see if
octaves.
the mic placement. Maybe I can.
Yeah, try it again. Yeah,
Yeah. I'll just. Does it cut out if like?
let's see. It's not being detected. Oh, wait. Keep going. I thought you were playing it, but it wasn't. Yeah. It's good. Yeah, good so far. It caught everything.
Alrighty. I think it's because I put it up a little bit too high. So like,
Yeah.
So one of
Mhm.
the big struggles with this piece is I had to shift like so you see how my fingers are on the okay, let me show this better.
Mhm.
So finger here, finger
Mhm.
here. I have to like make my way down here for the thing. So I have to go like this and
And
then
then like
move
slide it down.
and
Kind
then
of like
move.
those rock musicians who like, zzz, they do the electric guitar like slide.
There's kind of like a
Ah, you're moving down. Okay, and then
yeah,
it.
you could just do that continuous thing, but
Interesting.
it's not exactly
By
very
the way,
it's
I just had the thought that like Ligea would love that music because like I don't know why I get like the Adams Family vibe from it. Like that you could play like the organ, like the creepy
yeah.
house music. Like this instrument is perfect for that kind of music as well. It's like because I guess they do that for sound effects in movies. They have like a screeching sound or like
Yeah,
an
this
ominous. Yeah,
there's one that's like
yeah. And if I'm hearing that, it's like a horror movie sound. It's like, okay, what's gonna happen? Like there's like a and I'm walking forward and it's like a trapdoor falls open or whatever and I fall
some
in it.
pretty great ominous noises can be made by viola.
Yeah. Okay.
You can also
That's
make some nice deep noises too,
try
like
one. Yeah. Like a bass.
yeah. And then one of the things we're doing in orchestra is we're learning how to play like you can essentially play a string to
Hmm.
play another string, which is really weird.
You can play a string to play another string. How does that work?
So like okay, so just some strings. This is the A string,
Hmm.
D, G, C. If I can play the C, I can play notes on the G string on the C string if
Hmm.
I shift down.
Hmm.
So yeah, so that's one of like it's called like playing in like third, fourth position. I'm
Hmm.
just gonna put my viola up. Um, It's like playing in third and fourth position, which is
Hmm.
one of the big things.
Hmm.
Is one of the most like one of the things that the teacher's having us do,
Hmm.
especially for like octaves and stuff. So yeah, that's like my primary thing. I just play my instrument. I don't really do too much after school. I was in a gardening club for a while, but
Hmm. Oh,
yeah.
I did try gardening in school. What was it? The green team. It was actually nice. I remember we grew a tomato and a potato, and I took it home, and my mom made a sandwich, and it tasted really good. We grew some stuff. We had some
Yeah.
initiatives. We started a composting initiative and stuff.
Ooh, fun. Wait, we have a composting bin.
Yeah, I think we started like a composting pit or something, like an actual hole in the ground that we started putting in like worms and dirt and
Oh,
mud and stuff.
cool.
Yeah, it was actually
I just
interesting. Yeah.
remember we did transplants because we overplanted on radishes, and we
Oh,
basically
yeah.
I'd never I went into this club having never gardened before.
Right. I was the
So
same. I had never done it myself. Yeah.
yeah, but I enjoyed it, and I'll probably rejoin this year. I think they restarted doing it because like
Hmm.
they took a break for winter, but yeah, it was very fun.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, but yeah, on the typical after school stuff, I don't really do any sports or anything. I think I'm gonna play soccer later this year, but not for my school.
Yeah, my co-founder Evan, who knows Virkaiyu, he recently moved here from Seattle. You know, he's going to be here for about 6 months in Vancouver. Um, so we met up. I met his two dogs. I met Beatrix, his wife. They were all lovely. And
Oh,
then he wants to. He used to play soccer apparently as a midfielder, and he wants to teach me how to play. I like to call it football, but I know soccer is what people know it as. So, or many people
in,
in North
in
America,
America, it's soccer, and the rest of the world,
it's
as
football.
you're constantly reminded and online, it's
Yeah.
football.
Football versus hand egg. Yeah, so just for context for the listeners, me and Harrison are in a Discord with a lot of European people in it. So for them, it's football, pretty obviously. For Canada and US and maybe even Mexico, it's soccer. Maybe Mexico does football, I don't know.
Mexico does like football. We
Football.
have the
Like
it's
FUT.
FUTBOL, yeah.
Football. Yeah. Football. Yeah.
And then it's not even soccer or football in Chinese. It's like the word for it's like to kick a ball.
Oh,
Like
interesting. I
they
didn't
don't
know that.
actually use like play for it for some. I don't know. It's one of the weird things.
Yeah. Do you like linguistics? Are you interested in like etymology, the
Yeah,
origin of words, and other
languages are
languages?
fascinating.
Yeah.
Um,
Interesting.
like I'm learning a little bit of French too.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot pronounce it to save my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I find it interesting that in Chinese and a lot of other languages, Korean for example,
Mm-hmm.
there are words that cannot be described in English, which I always think is very interesting. Sort of ideas like measure words
Yeah.
in Chinese. Instead of saying "I have the book," you'd be like, uh, it's like I forgot what the measure word for book is.
Wait, there's no way this is like inverted. Damn. Okay. I'll have to
Uh,
like invert it myself in the editing. But sorry, go on. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
yeah. Um. It basically it's like Chinese has measure words like
Hmm.
Zhang. I think it's like Zhang or something. My Chinese teacher would kill me if I pronounced it that way, but uh, it's it's like a general measure word,
Hmm.
and you can't describe those words because normally we just say two books, which would be like it's like Liangshu or something,
Yeah.
um, or Arshu, um, uh, but now in Chinese you also have to have the measure word
Hmm.
typically. If you're not naming, if you're naming specific numbers, which can't be described in English, which I think is just very interesting about how languages think about the world differently. You can also see where a lot of people develop their accents
Yep.
because they speak certain languages that sort of force you think about words in a different order in a different way.
Yeah, you put your verbs in a different way. You might read right to left. You might pronounce certain sounds more often. Therefore, you start using those sounds more. Like I know that Telugu, my mom's language, it's a South Indian language, and my dad is from Tamil Nadu, so Tamil is his South Indian language. India has so many languages. It doesn't have the Z sound, Z, right? So my mom says pizza instead of pizza.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and stuff like that. And I know that in Portuguese and maybe Belgian, like there's some languages that have two concepts for envy. they have this idea of a good envy and a bad envy, or a black envy or a white envy. And the idea is that one kind of envy is that, like, I see what you have, and this, let's say this is the bad envy. I see what you have, and I want harm to befall you. Like, I see you have a Lamborghini, and I'm jealous of it. I'm envious, and I want you to lose that Lamborghini, or I want you to fall and trip on your face, and then I can laugh at you, kind of thing. Then there's the white envy, which is kind of like, and I don't know the Portuguese words for these or anything. And yeah, I'm pulling this out because I forgot to put the lid on it. Um, but yeah, this is amazing craftsmanship, by the way. I just want to mention, like, I should
Yeah.
probably give them a shout out because it's really cool to me what they've done. Like, you've got this orange case, and
Oh,
there's a
that's a
cleaning
really
brush.
nice case. I
Yeah.
have like a very beaten up school case. It's like this.
Yeah.
It's yeah, it's got my name on it.
Yeah. And it comes with this like beautiful blue thing. Oh, Harrison. Okay, nice. So I guess the school provided your viola? Public
Yeah,
school.
school
That makes
provide
sense.
viola.
Nice. That's awesome.
I might rent one though
You.
because when I need to practice when I get to like home at over the summer and
Yeah.
yeah, then I could get a higher quality viola.
Hmm.
Um,
And then this thing is beautiful. It's like soft,
in
silky. I
fact,
guess it protects the thing. I have to learn how to use all this, but I want to send them an email and just say
probably
thank
like
you.
the covering you put over it when you close it or something. Like you could put the covering over the instrument. I don't know.
Maybe. It came in like a plastic long bag, but I'm guessing this is what I store it in day to day. And then I can even like pull the drawstring to tighten it, I guess. And then I don't know how I untighten it, but I'll figure it out. And then I
I
store
just
it
think
back.
it's like one of those things where you put your fingers in and then yank it out.
Oh yeah, the Chinese finger traps or whatever they are.
Like you know, like those like wrappings that
Uh-huh.
kind of tighten like that, where you can sort of just tug
Oh,
to
just tug and then the strings come out. Okay, I see what you're saying.
yeah,
Yeah, that'll probably
and
be the
tighten.
mechanism. Yeah,
Yeah,
makes
pretty
sense.
simple.
Hmm. Man, I'm really bad with a lot of like physical mechanical things, and my friend was saying that can be pretty common for INTPs. But again, like like we talked about, we don't want to let our identity define us. If we want to get good at something, if I want to get good at mechanical stuff, like I learned to install a bidet and do like basic plumbing, basic water understanding and mechanical stuff. So why not? We can learn all that. And then yeah, it's
Yeah,
got this little like, what is this? It's got like some kind of latch that can lock on, but I think I've not packed it properly because it's not closing properly. But yeah, this is beautiful. I'm trying to
yeah.
remember what topic we were on before this.
I think we were talking about. Let me think. We were talking about something about. I don't remember.
Adam's Family, Ligeia, the violin, ominous
The noise is
sounds.
sort of the four organ deep
Oh yeah, the organ.
noises.
Yeah,
We're
and
talking
then we
about
went.
languages. Languages.
Oh
Yeah.
yes, languages. Yes. So what I was gonna say is, there's a guy in the Vigar V2 Discord, Staples. He likes learning League. He's really interesting. I think he mentioned he might be. I think he's learning Mandarin basically, and there's also a guy named Hex777 who's used to speak Mandarin and he's learned a lot of languages. So I think I should connect you with those two people because I think they would really be interested in discussing Mandarin with you, helping you learn it, helping them learn
I
it,
met
and so on.
someone on a top lane Discord server, actually, a top lane Discord server for a YouTuber called Roku. A
Uh-huh.
very good YouTuber, very interesting.
What
Great
happens
way
there?
of control. Roku.
Yeah.
He's the top lane educational YouTuber. He plays a lot of Darius.
Okay.
Um,
So you learn Mandarin
he
there, is what you're saying?
I met someone there who was from Hong Kong who knows
Really?
Mandarin.
Wait, so that's interesting because Hong Kong usually speaks Cantonese, but he probably speaks Cantonese and Mandarin, or
Both.
she.
Yeah, he
Both.
speaks both.
Speaks both. Okay, nice.
Complete-
And how is he helping you, or how are you collaborating with him?
I haven't really asked for any help yet, but I might.
Yeah, you
I
should.
don't know.
Yeah, people love to share. Watch the things you like watching. That's my advice to everyone: is read and watch. Do things you like. Don't.
I do enjoy listening to like
Mhm.
discussions and things though. I watch a lot of like retrospectives,
Yeah,
video essays.
yeah, I like those too. I think discussion was my favorite form of learning in school, and I got very little of it. Like I would ask questions, and they would put limitations on my questions. They would say, "Okay, you can only ask 5 questions per class or something." And I'd be like, "Well, now I don't want to ask any questions." So it just didn't. It
I
felt weird. Yeah,
I
but I
got
get
banned
it.
from
Hmm?
like raising my hand because I raised my hand too much in class.
Wait, really?
Yeah, my English teacher like will not call on me even if I don't know the answer. I built up such a reputation that I do in fact know the answer that he will not call on me, which is really funny. because
Right, because he wants to give a chance for other people to answer it or
yeah,
participate.
I raise
Yeah,
my hand all the time. So
yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like even if you get it wrong, you'll get corrected and then you'll be right
Yeah,
later.
there's no downside per se if you're not worried about social ridicule. Now, M Test, the 25-year-old coach who played 5 years of pro league, he talked about in his childhood. You should watch that episode first. I think you'd like it because he's coming from the perspective of someone who's maybe 10 years ahead of you, but um, he also got into esports. He was interested in these things. His parents supported him, but interestingly enough, he didn't like school. And I think he said that he did okay academically. It's just that he was anxious all the time. He was worried about what will people think, right? He was afraid to raise his hand even when he did know the answer because he was like, ah, do I really know the answer? And what if I get it wrong? And people will look at me weird and, I'll judge me. So he had a lot of that anxiety. So it's actually really good to hear that you don't. That for you, it's like, it's just about the answers, right? It's not about the people. It's just about, I'll get corrected. I'll figure it out. That's why I don't mind being wrong on my podcast or saying offensive things because it's like, I'm telling you what I think. And if what I think is wrong, I should say it. Then you can correct me. Then I can think better things and then be more effective at life.
Yeah, that's one of the things with debates online. If people just listen to what other people said more, it'd be better. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. We should listen to opposing views and we should explore ideas. That's why I don't like the idea of making people afraid to just discuss things, even if they're taboo. Like my episode with Hollyander, it was crazy. It was the most wild episode. We laughed so much. He lives his life to make people laugh, basically. That's what he told me. His life's purpose is to make people laugh. And so we discussed, like, but we also got really deep. Like, we discussed when I was suicidal, for example. We discussed trauma, politics, religion, the two things that people like ban in most of their Discord servers, right? Because they don't want it to get too divisive.
Yeah.
But I think I just love exploring all those things, maybe in part because they are taboo, but also I think in part because they touch upon the essence of what it is to be human, right? If you think about religion and politics or philosophy in general, like, I like political philosophy more than politics, to be honest, but I just think like those deep ideas are where you will find the meaningful impacts. Like if I change my mind about religion or spirituality or anything like that, then I become a much hopefully better person, right? Like I learn something way more impactful.
More developed worldview.
Yeah, a more developed worldview. Sure, yeah, that's why I think I loved learning about Jesus and then Buddha and then Prophet Muhammad, right? Like I just liked talking to imams, talking to all sorts of people, and just learning about. Because then I started to see commonalities. I think I like seeing patterns. I like gathering data, seeing patterns. You're probably relating to a lot of this yourself.
Yeah, I'm. My family's mainly Jewish, so
Okay. Tell me
I,
about the Jewish faith. How much do you know about it? I have a
uh,
friend who converted to Judaism. Yeah.
I'm not super religious. I just
Okay.
enjoy religion for the fact that it's fascinating, but I don't really actively partake in much of it. I did my bar
Mhm.
mitzvah. Of course, we read Hebrew, which is a left to right language.
Oh, it is? Okay, like Arabic. Interesting.
Wait, no, left to right,
Or right to left.
right to left. Yeah.
Right to left. Right. Mhm.
Yeah. I think they're also distantly related, actually.
Arabic and
Arabic
Hebrew?
and Hebrew. Yeah,
Yeah, I think
both
so. I
Semitic
think.
languages.
Mhm.
Um, and they're both very fascinating. It's a very fascinating language. I read
Mhm.
some interesting stories.
Mhm.
The faith isn't too different than a lot of other religions, except Reform Judaism, at least, is very loose. Like,
Yeah.
pretty loose on almost everything.
Versus
Which is
like
really fun.
traditional or conservative Judaism or something.
Orthodox. Uh,
Orthodox.
yeah, Orthodox is, I believe, what you mean by traditional, but I don't know.
I don't know which one she joined. So my friend, because I was talking about this with Hollyander in the previous episode, and he said it's nearly impossible to convert to Judaism. And I told him, well, it seemed like she was going through a scholarly process, like learning a lot to convert into Judaism. It's rigorous, I guess. You need to.
Actually,
Mhm.
pretty easy depending on what group you're converting into. It's
Okay.
not too crazy to do. And
Mhm.
they typically, like a lot of churches, will just let you go to synagogue for free.
Yeah, why
But
not? Because they want people to visit. Yeah.
I've actually interested. I've been to a Catholic mass. I
hmm
want to go to
I've.
like a Christian church.
hmm
I want to go to a mosque. Maybe I
Yeah.
think religion is such a fascinating thing. There's just a lot of
Yeah.
good concepts that come out of it.
Yeah, and I think over the course of my life, I was like, because my parents never pressured me into religion, and I think my dad likes to say that Hinduism is one of the few religions that does not spread the idea that you should spread the religion, right? It doesn't believe in telling other people to become Hindu. Um,
Yeah,
but
it's not
there,
universalizing.
it's not, yeah, which is interesting to me because I always used to think about like, well, how do religions fundamentally self-propagate? And part of how they self-propagate, one way could be by by having ideas that involve telling other people to convert, right? Or converting other people. And Christianity did this a lot with missionaries going over to Africa and other places and colonies and trying to show people the way, right?
Yeah.
And then another way a religion could convert people or spread, propagate, is by being useful, right? And I think Christianity is a combination of both. I think almost every religion has some aspects that are useful, meaning they teach things that help people feel better or achieve better results in life. So I went through a phase where I was like anti-theist. So I basically was against religion and against, but now I'm atheist, meaning I believe that God doesn't exist. At least I believe we have no reason to believe he exists or like some creator. But I do think religion has a lot of value. Like, I think a lot of the moral values, the ideas, the traditions, the concepts, they're very useful. They make society better. And I also believe in individual liberty. So I would never want to decide for someone else what they should believe. That's not my place, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Hmm. But
The
I'd like to
idea,
converse with them. Yeah.
the idea, I've talked to this is very interesting. I've talked to someone who believed very deeply in a specific, I believe, sect of Christianity.
Okay.
That and like he would talk on and about his opinions on a lot of things that,
Mhm.
while some of them even scientifically prove it wrong, I don't. I feel like it's more of a, if you're going to be mean to other people about it, then I'm going to prove you wrong. But if you're not going to be mean to other people about it, I don't know. Unless there's a real harm in it, whatever. I mean, the person was particularly nice, sadly, so they're not. They did not get received very well. But
They were not particularly nice, is what you're
yeah,
saying.
they weren't very nice about
They
their
weren't.
opinions. Like they
Right.
were so they ardently believed in the Bible in a way that was pretty unhealthy.
Mm.
And also, people fail to recognize sometimes that a lot of these things are very old,
Yeah.
and they are still written by someone with a
Yeah.
bias.
Right. They're
And
written with a perspective. Yeah.
yeah, their opinions on like women and homosexuality and stuff
Yeah.
are just not very well aged,
Yeah.
to
That's why
say
I
the
prefer
least.
philosophy to religion. But I also understand how religion is a efficient way to transmit ideas through culture, across time, across many generations, and keep them relatively intact, like the values of don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal. I think those have a lot of value. And I'm beginning to philosophically understand why lying is bad for me. For purely selfish reasons, I should not want to lie because it distorts my relationship with reality. I get worse at it. Um, whereas, it's the same with cheating and stealing, right? It's like I can benefit in life by helping people and them helping me and it being mutually win-win rather than trying to take from people, steal from people, lie to them. And I've met people who think that lying is okay and that lying makes sense. Why wouldn't you do what is best for yourself? But I'm saying it is best for yourself to develop a mind that is creative and collaborative, not a mind that is uh, trying to look for opportunities to steal from others, because that it's a kind of a
Yeah,
short-sighted view because you have a whole lifetime. You're not really limited by a lot of things. Some people might be at some points in their life, but you have time, you have money, you have capacity. We have technology. We have so many things to leverage to make our lives far better than if we chose to take short-sighted routes, I would say. Sorry, I went on a
uh,
tangent though. Go ahead.
that's fine. Uh, happens to me all the time. I go off on random tangents.
Yeah, I
Uh,
like listening to you though. It's nice because it's giving me perspective as well. And I'm noticing how similar we are. Like the fact that the teacher won't call on you anymore. That happened to me too.
yeah. It's funny, like today in the library, we were watching an author talk, and I typically, you get rewarded for raising your hand, and normally I'd ask a lot of questions, so
Hmm.
I get rewards for it now. And they made us like write up like a story, so I decided,
Hmm.
like a character in that world, and the character they're goblins, and I like goblins from video game before Total War Warhammer.
Hmm. I've heard of Total Warhammer. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the goblins.
Hmm.
I really like, and the greenskins in general. I like
Hmm.
Warzag, the Great Green Prophet. So I
Hmm.
decided to name my guy William. I don't know why I chose William. It just sounded like a standard medieval name.
Yeah.
Uh, William the Great Green Gobbo.
The
Uh,
Great Green Grabo. Nice.
yes, and I went up in front of the class and told them about that. and
Mm-hmm.
how he's trying to prove that goblins are good in
Mm-hmm.
this universe. And he's
Nice.
fighting giants in some mystical southern area that I completely invented. And
And
also,
usually goblins are like mischievous for the listeners. They're usually mischievous. They're usually not good per se. They're usually meant to represent some kind of. I mean, it depends. They can be looting, they can be stealing, they can be mischievous, they can be small, like they can be hordes of masses of goblins. They can be kind of primitive in a way. What's your view on goblins as they are portrayed usually, compared to how you
they
chose to
are
portray them?
typically portrayed. I mean, okay, for example, in Tolkien, they're literally lesser orcs. I mean,
Lesser
while in the
orcs, yeah.
movies they're portrayed as being their own race, they're in fact just lesser orcs. They're
Right.
used interchangeably. They're just small orcs.
Did you read
Uh,
Tolkien's books?
I've read The Lord of the Rings and I've watched a lot of YouTube videos on Tolkien. Very
Okay.
fascinating.
Yeah, I
Um,
haven't. I think I read The Hobbit, but I haven't read the books. I think I've
I
watched some
do.
of the movies. Yeah.
I love universes. I love Star Wars. I like Warhammer, Warhammer 40,000, Warhammer fantasy.
Like I've
Uh,
asked so many people questions about Warhammer, like this idea that there's an emperor that is psychically connected to people, and there's like trillions of people or something insane, right?
it's
And dimensions. Yeah.
it's so crazy that it's just fun. That's my opinion. It's like
Yeah.
it doesn't exactly make sense. It's just crazy, so it's fun.
Yeah.
Um,
But it does
but
make sense in its own way once you suspend
yeah,
disbelief and get into the laws of physics in that world and things like that. So I
but
guess my question for you, sorry, go ahead.
but just about the goblins thing.
Yeah, the goblins. Finish that.
Goblins. I see them as like the
Yeah.
the orcs that couldn't use their size to carry them through society.
Right.
Almost. They're
So they had
just
to deal with being less strong, but still having similar mentality and attitude
yeah,
as
similar
orcs.
mentality and attitude,
Hmm.
and sort of they
So they want
fulfill
power. Are they
yeah,
greedy? Greedy goblins. That's kind of a trope. Like goblins with
yeah.
their gold, right? Sack
Yeah,
of
they
gold.
want
Yeah.
make up for like the fact that they're smaller in society. So, for example, in
Mhm.
Warhammer, a lot of the goblins, like for example, a very important one, Skarsnik. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
I have
He
not.
is very important.
Mhm.
He is very smart. They're forced to be more clever.
Right.
Uh, Draw another thing, kind of like Odysseus in the Odyssey. He's
Hmm.
very clever. Um,
So they
that
need to
sort of
rely on their wits rather than their
yeah,
brawn.
their
Brains
raw
over brawn.
strength.
Hmm.
While orcs, the I don't know whether it's Uruk-hai and uh, Tolkien or
Hmm.
you Black Orcs and
Or even
Warhammer. So
Garrosh
many
from
names.
World of Warcraft and all of that.
Yeah,
The orcs
uh,
there. Yeah.
they sort of have to use their intelligence more. They use their strength while the goblins use their intelligence and their sort
Hmm.
of dexterity there to
Dexterity. That's a good one.
build their ranged. You know, in Warhammer, a lot of their units are in Total War. A lot of their units are ranged units, not a lot of melees. And the melee ones are all sneaky. They're all about getting behind, doing a ton of damage, and going. They're not going to have the same sticking power, but they
Hmm.
also are really accurate. They are probably they're better archers than the orcs are, which I think is a very interesting sort of dynamic where they both work together. They're both necessary because the
Yeah.
goblins are craftier than the orcs
So
are
there
because
you have engineers who are
yeah,
goblins, right? You have
they have
yeah,
to be craftier.
they have to be craftier. This
It's
reminds me of
inter-
how like I was asking someone, what's up with Coach Cupcake and Coach Curtis and Nathan Mott and all these people starting their own academies, like the Mid Lane Academy from Coach Curtis, Nathan Mott having Salt U for Jungle Academy in League of Legends, and Coach Cupcake having his School of Support. And someone explained to me that they were all part of the Direwolves team in the Oceanic region, and they all had to basically innovate because the Oceania region is like a minor region. It's got less competition, less funding, less people overall compared to North America. So they all had to take innovative approaches. And then, Coach Curtis has a book club where he reads like, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins and other books that are about leadership, business, psychology. And Coach Cupcake went to school and he actually read Can't Hurt Me as well, Coach Cupcake, and he's probably read a bunch of other books. And he also went to university and got dual degrees in sports science and psychology, right? So that's really interesting to me because it means that you have two choices in an environment that is not giving you the resources that other environments have. Let's say you're disadvantaged or underprivileged. You have one choice to rise above and to choose to innovate and to choose to learn as much as you can and to choose to take it as a challenge. And that's kind of a growth mindset. And the other kind of mindset you can have, and the funny thing is when you do that, now Coach Cupcake, Coach Curtis, I would say that they are better than many NA coaches because many NA coaches got complacent, right? They compared themselves to the people around them, whereas the coaches in Oceania who did this, they didn't choose to compare themselves to the people around them. They chose to compare themselves to the best in the world, and they began to learn from fields outside of video games to apply it back. And that's fascinating to me. I would want to know more about that story. Like I want to go and interview more of the people who were there, and figure out what really happened from each of their perspective.
Um,
But what you're describing with the goblins is the same. They had to adapt. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, basically that. Yeah, you have a very good point. They do. They have to adapt because they can't rely on the same things that.
And the ones who rely on the same things or try to will die. Like they will fail. They'll go and they'll try to pick a fight with an orc and they'll get smashed.
Yeah,
But if like five of them team up and they set up a prank, or like one of them designs a mechanism to trap the orc in a net or something, then they're using their brains, not their bronze.
yeah.
Mhm.
That's basically exactly sums it up. They have to use their brains to create what they need to win. It's something that you see in other races as well. A lot of the ones that don't have very good physical advantages, like dwarves, they are. I mean, they're strong, but they're really short.
Mhm.
They can't really move as fast, but they put themselves in the strongest armor they can get,
Mhm.
and they get themselves in. I mean, it's in Tolkien too. Like they make sure that when they're fighting over their strongholds and their places like Erebor, Moria. Um, yeah,
Mhm.
I don't know. It's also on another note. It's fascinating the amount of draw things that like you can connect cultures that are connected to like Lord of the Rings and stuff. Like with a lot of the names, they're very Celtic,
Mhm.
Gaelic sort of names
Oh,
like
I should
Dane.
introduce you to Justin. I told you about Myers-Briggs INTP, all that. He's learning Gaelic and Celtic like as a language and things. He knows how to
Oh,
pronounce the words, and
that's really cool.
yeah, he's. I don't want to speak for him. He'll probably correct me on what I just said, but that's okay. He knows I get excited and say things, but I don't know if he's learning the language or if he's just like exploring it. Let's say, because just like you and me, he's probably learned a little about a lot, and also a lot about some things that I guess I'm noticing that with the way that I am, the way that my mind works, I just remember a lot of stuff. And I thought, oh, this will change with age. But Justin is like in his 40s and he's still remembering lots of stuff. He's like a human database. So I'm like, yeah, no, this is just who I am.
Right.
Huh?
That's really interesting. That yeah, people. I mean, I feel
Mhm.
like old habits die hard. People
Right.
really keep a lot. At least I hope I keep a lot of the stuff I do. A
Yeah.
lot of the things I love, all that stays.
Yeah, like I think, let's say by the time you're 27 or 30, let's say another 15 years of your life go by, you're double your age now. I think you will have, as long as you're consciously thinking about, just like with the viola, sorry, I had to self-correct.
Fine.
Just like with the viola, when you're playing it and then there's a lot of going back and looking at mistakes and reflecting on them, I think life is similar. You go back and you're like, hey, when I was 13, what did I do? What was my cycle like? What was the pattern over the years of problems I kept getting into or mistakes I kept making? Same thing I had to do. Like when I was 22, I did this, and now I'm noticing when I was 25, I did this. Now I'm 27. What can I do differently so that my 23-year-old self doesn't happen again? My 25-year-old self doesn't happen again? You said you liked history, right? There's that saying about history is about learning. Like those who do not learn history are doomed to
Yeah,
repeat it.
can you repeat it? Yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
I do know that saying.
Hmm. Just give
You're
me a moment
very,
to think back. Hmm. By the way, what's
so,
on your mind now? Is there anything interesting you'd like to share, or anything you find interesting that you'd like to share?
um, well, okay. So I have this interesting thing that is how chess
Hmm.
is just, it's very fascinating.
Yeah.
It's sort of it's talked about in a way that is like it's talked about like it's an art, which I think
Hmm.
is so interesting.
Hmm.
Having experience like talking about art, talking about instruments, it's sort of like a flow, but it's also weirdly like analytical. It's like hard to describe. It's like artsy, but like analytical, kind of like really high level math, where there's sort of like a beauty in it in the how
You.
people
Yeah.
see.
I had an episode with Tom where yeah he we talked a bit about semi-group theory, the high-level math. He's interested in some history of math. He wants to do a series where he teaches me math concepts, probably without the numbers, but just the concepts because he knows I don't like math in that traditional way. So when you're talking about chess as an art and a science, let's say,
Yeah.
because I've often viewed chess as like Because I think chess is beautiful. I never got into it myself that much. I think my maximum rating was what, like 1250 on like chess.com, something like that, 1200.
That's really good. I'm like
No, I thought it started around there though. That's why I didn't think that was that good.
I'm like what is it? What am I again?
Mhm.
I'm like 600 now. I think
Wait,
I've
okay,
only
then maybe I'm thinking about the wrong here. Let me. Do you want to play a
good.
game of chess right now? You'll probably smash me. I'm pretty sure.
Sure. Why
Let's try
not?
it. Yeah, why not?
Oh, I'm like
Uh,
just under 600. I
Wait,
forgot that.
hold on. No, I also remember that I used to cheat. So this isn't my real rating. Like I used to use a computer like Fisher Engine and stuff, and I used
Oh
to look
yeah, I
at
had a friend that did
yeah,
that.
yeah. So I used to look at like what does the computer choose to do, and oh, so if I go here, okay, no, your bishop can't kill me, right? Okay. I mean, I don't know. I noticed one thing people talk about is like developing knights, right? Getting your knight inside. Yeah, so you're doing the same thing, and now your guy's defended, so my white knight can't kill your. I should probably read out the notation for people who play chess and are listening. So what is it? I'm doing. So okay, my first
The
move
E4,
was
E5, then you did knight F3, and then I did knight C6.
and then
Then
now I'm
bishop
developing the
C4,
other knight, which probably isn't correct, but we'll see what
then
happens.
knight C3.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm gonna do bishop. No, I'm gonna do yeah. I'm just gonna mirror. I'm gonna do knight F6.
Okay, cool.
Just gonna read out the notation for everyone, and also it
Yeah,
makes it sound smart. So
it does make you sound smart.
yeah.
Uh, I remember my brother and I used to play chess as kids, and he liked making like a zigzag pattern of pawns, like protecting each other and moving the pawns up, stuff like that.
Do so D3.
Okay,
Uh,
so now you're threatening my thing. Oh, this is interesting because if I move up a pawn to try to threaten your guy, you can just take the pawn. There's nothing defending it. Hmm.
uh,
If I move, sorry, what is it? B2 to B4 pawn?
I believe yeah.
Yeah. So I would have to find something else because I wanted to move my bishop similar to what you did, but I thought you could just move up a pawn. But maybe, oh yeah, and then I would have been defended by the knight, so it's interesting. There's so much. Chess is really cool, actually.
Yeah.
I would be interested in learning how people learn chess and what patterns go into the
So
common flaws that they
yeah,
end up making, the
super
mistakes they end up
fascinating.
making. Yeah. So this is my queen, right? I think developing the queen too early can be a mistake. Oh, I guess I can do.
Don't
Yeah, I
go
can do this. I think. Oh wait, no, I can't. Damn. I think you have three pieces that can cover this. So I just did white pawn from d3 to
white pawn
d4.
to D4, and then
d4.
I did
hmm
uh pawn takes D4, I
Yeah,
believe.
and I guess the interesting thing is now, yeah, you have the bishop and the knight covering it. I think I forgot about your pawn basically because I noticed I had my knight and also my queen, and now my knight is also threatened. So I kind of just gave up a piece. So I think this is a big blunder. What do you think?
Uh, it you definitely like lose a tempo, I think, with it, but it's
So
not
what is tempo in chess? I know tempo in League. I don't know tempo
tempo
in
in
chess.
chess is like
hmm
you're forced to make a move before that. Also, just feel free to like just go. Like we can analyze mistakes later
Yeah,
and
yeah,
all that because there's probably better just so you don't lose on time because that would be kind of annoying.
yeah, yeah. I understand. Just make a decision, even if it's the wrong one. Yep. I'm actually pretty bad at doing that in life, but it's a good skill. It's a good thing to practice. Just make the most intuitive decision, then learn from it, and figure out why my intuition was wrong.
Annoying. I have to.
hmm I was also really fascinated with how chess engines worked.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that's
I was
always
trying to figure out like why is the computer doing that move, and then I would reverse engineer the move, and I would go a few moves ahead, and then I would realize, oh, it's doing it for this effect later on.
yeah.
It has a plan that's
I
different from
just love
mine.
following like what is it gonna play out? Like I'll go
Right.
into some of the daily puzzles and be like, okay, after this puzzle finishes, what does the computer want you
Right.
to do?
Yeah. So I just did white knight from. Sorry, what was your move? Oh, it's all
My
written on
move
the right side.
7, you did bishop g5,
hmm
and then knight takes c7.
hmm I liked this because it threatens your elephant or your rook. Sorry, in the Indian chess, I guess they call it an elephant,
Yeah, yeah, forgot about that.
but but I think there's something called a fork, right, where I can threaten two pieces at once. But here I'm not doing that. It's just
Unable to block for either piece.
right
Yeah, you can't take
where
go.
you have to sacrifice one piece. Now here my knight is in an interesting position. He's safe, but he's like behind enemy lines.
Yeah,
My knight at c7. Okay.
And
So
then
let's
I did
yeah.
b8
Right.
with rook.
I know there's also a point system. Are bishops worth less or more than knights? Do you know?
Same.
Same.
So
Okay.
it's three
Interesting.
points bishop, 1 point pawn,
Hmm.
uh, 1 point, 3 points for bishops and knight, 1 point pawn, 9 points queen, 5 points rook. That's
Hmm.
like it.
Okay. I wasn't actually able to process all of that. I was thinking about my move, but I'm so glad you said it for the
Alright, I
podcast.
can write it down too.
Hmm. Ooh, man, there's like so many moves possible, but I'll just do
Oh god. When in doubt, develop it out.
develop it out. I don't even know how. Oh wait, when in doubt, develop it out. I like that. That's kind of a mnemonic.
Sort of just, I don't know. I just thought of that. Like,
Hmm.
if you don't know what to do, just get a piece kind of out there.
Yeah, start moving stuff up. That makes sense to me.
I can think of a few good ones for you, like getting that bishop
Mm,
or
I'm
the
thinking about this, but okay, let's try it.
queen, and
See
then
what
try
happens.
castling on like the next turn or whatever.
Yeah, castling could be interesting.
Yeah,
I think castling helps develop the elephant, right? The rook.
yeah.
Hmm.
Develops the rook.
But if you do the long side castle, then I think the rook is able to get out immediately.
Yeah, the rook gets out immediately if you alongside castle, but it's quicker to do short side.
Hmm. Makes sense. So this puts me in check, I believe, right?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So I might need to do the castling. Like, wait, that's not castling. How do I
Oh, so
castle? Oh.
I'm sorry. It doesn't let you can't castle out of check.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
Anyway, I
so
made my move. Yeah,
that
that's
is
okay.
something just yeah.
To keep in mind as a rule, yeah.
Yeah. I forgot about that.
That's okay. I also remember there was en passant and stuff where you could like take a pawn diagonally and do something interesting. Okay, this is so your knight is now here. All right, let's see. So you just did f1 to g4, your knight, or no? What is this?
You
g4
did
knight.
F1.
Uh-huh.
I did queen and
Oh,
take.
so the notation is showing white and black moves. Okay, both. I see.
Yeah, it's right on the side of the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just use that.
Yeah,
It's
that's what
very
I've been looking at, but I've been reading it a bit wrong. Let's see what I can do.
sort of weird to read.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Like read a book on like how to read chess notation or whatever. Very
Mm-hmm.
fast.
You did read a book on how to read chess notation?
Yeah, I got like a chess guide at like a used bookstore.
Yeah, I remember reading a book in high school as well because I was part of the chess club. And I did think like it's really cool that it had a lot of puzzles, I guess, is what there were a lot of puzzles on how to do different chess board states and like try to solve them. Like, oh, how can you get to check in X moves? Okay. Hmm. Yeah, this is hard.
Yeah, there's a lot to think of. Very fascinating game. Don't overthink it. I mean, there are gonna be plenty of more times where you'll get to do a good move, a bad move, or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just there's some move I'm seeing, but it's gonna be really bad, but it might be interesting anyway. Um, just trying to think. It's like I think it's because it's 6 moves ahead of like what could happen, but it might be
I
interesting just to see it
see
play out.
what
Yeah.
happens. You think will happen?
Yeah, it probably won't be what I think will happen, right? I'm just trying to see if it's possible that if I move this bishop here, do I get more time when I do make a move? I guess I'm not sure about that.
No, you just have to make them.
Okay, then we just gotta keep making them, I guess.
Yeah, just
All
That's
right, here
why
we go then. Let's do it.
losing on time would be very anticlimactic.
It would be very anticlimactic. So just for the listeners, he's got 7 minutes and 40 seconds of time, and I've got 2 minutes and 38 seconds of time. So it is quite hard. Or at least I'm low on time, basically. How do I put this back? Okay. Yeah, I kind of messed up with my night, huh? It's like in the middle of nowhere now. This just develops your thing. Okay. So I moved my pawn from pawn to f4, basically, white pawn. Okay, queen takes the knight.
Pawn up. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Let's see. What can I do here? Boom. Hmm. Okay. Oh, did you have your move planned already? It like auto went.
Can pre-move.
Oh, there's a pre-move thing. Interesting.
Yeah, I
Okay, so
didn't
you.
mean to pre-move, but like I was
Oh, but it just happened.
screwing
Okay.
around and then I forgot to reset it.
Ah, okay. Interesting. Ooh. This is fascinating, dude. Oh my god. Okay, I'll do this. Okay. Yeah, so I didn't notice one thing there, but that's okay. You know, by the way, when in doubt, develop it out would probably work pretty well. Also, yeah, I think I'm about to lose on time. I have 16 seconds left, and we're not getting any additional time. Let's see if I can speed chess this from here. It's gonna be hard, but we're gonna try it. I have 8 seconds of time left.
Blundered my queen right there. Wow. Okay. If you had more time, you would have been
Oh,
able to see that.
yeah. Okay, so now I'm in check. Okay. I have 0.3 seconds. Okay. I guess I lose on time. But I also lost objectively, I think. Like, I think you just made good plays, and I lost more points than you did. Like, I'm missing a lot more units. Okay, game over. Stone League. Learn the why behind your moves with game review. Black 1. Okay, I'll take a screenshot of this for the chat and the board state that was in. Okay,
Curve.
nice. Well played.
We'll play it.
I think you ate a lot more of my units than I ate of yours, right?
I think I had a slight material advantage. I will check.
Oh, that's what it's called? Material advantage? Makes sense.
It sounded interesting about how chess has evolved in different cultures. It was different. Like, there were different, like, pieces almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it started where? In India? Or somewhere?
India was one of the, I think it's somewhere in Asia, but India,
Mm-hmm.
the year thing where it's like the elephant.
Mm-hmm. Elephant, yeah.
Yeah.
We had elephant, camel, some other stuff that I was kids. As a kid, it was my uncle and parents who taught me chess, so I learned it in that culture. Um, but yeah, let's just wrap up over the course of the next 10 minutes. Is there any advice you'd like to give to the world? You know, someone who's, let's say, I don't know, someone who's 12 or 13, they're a few years behind you, or someone who's maybe a few years ahead of you. Is there anything you'd like to say to them if they were to ask you the question of like, how do I live a good life? Right?
Do what you love.
Mm-hmm.
don't be pressured by other people to do something that
Mhm.
is seen as better. And also, everyone brings their own thing to this world, and it's just you're gonna have to find it. You may not think you bring anything to the world, but everyone really does bring something. I don't think to go video games, there's no non-player characters or NPCs in this world. As much as we joke about it, there are
Mhm.
everyone is a person. Everyone has something about them that makes them tick, and everything has something special about them. That's
Mhm.
basically all I would probably say.
That's awesome. I think that's very wise, a very developed mindset. Because I have spoken to people on the podcast who've told me that they think there are many people in the world are NPCs. And I'm like, I don't know. When I talk with them one on one, that's not how it feels, right? Like, I've never met someone that I've talked with one on one who, like, when I went deep enough, like there was stuff there. It's
A
just,
lot of the people that are like really quiet, you
exactly.
don't talk a lot in school. I love talking to them because they always have like the most to say.
Yeah. Once you
Yeah.
get into it, right?
And the people that are loud and you think are a certain way, you talk to them. That's why I think stereotypes are like they exist to make you surprised about someone, which is always nice. They come from somewhere, but then again, not being a stereotype is almost a personality trait in and of itself.
Right. Yeah, because then people start to build into that trait themselves. Yeah, it's fascinating. I'd love to discuss this with you next time we get on. Um, I really enjoyed this conversation. I actually learned a lot, which is awesome. Uh,
Me as well.
yeah, and then I did have one thought. One sec, let me try to remember it. You said everyone brings something to this world. Do what you love. Don't let yourself be pressured by other people. Yeah, I want to ask you. Um, I guess I'm curious where your mindset comes from. Like, do you get it from your dad, your mom, yourself?
Um,
Like, how did it develop?
get it
Because it seems very
from
healthy. Hmm.
my mom. She's a very nice person. She's very, very kind.
Hmm.
My dad's also very nice, but I get it mainly from my mom. And
Hmm.
also, I just, from who my friends, people I've had crushes on, all that,
Hmm.
I've sort of developed like a sort of, you can't judge every book by its cover,
Hmm.
and a sort of like almost like, I just, I also just find it hard to judge people,
Hmm.
almost, which is actually funny because it's the exact opposite of my brother.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, so it's why I'm drawn to support because you know, I just like helping. And I feel like that also draws into sort of you bring something to this world. You haven't found out what it is yet.
Yeah,
You have
I
a
feel like. Mhm.
idealistic view of the world, I think.
Yeah, and apparently INTPs or just Ps in general, they want to change the world rather than live in it. Or I said with the N and the S, I forgot. But one of those distinctions is one prefers to like experience the world as it is and love it as it is, and my brother's more like that, and I'm more like I want to change the world. I want to make it better. I want to keep improving things around me. And I think podcasting might be my calling. Like I only started very recently. I left my job, but it feels really good to wake up every day and actually do something that I enjoy and that's my own. And like working many, many hours does not feel draining anymore. It doesn't feel tiring. Whereas doing just like 4 to 8 hours of work for like a company or a faceless corporation, and there's like not, it doesn't feel like I have an impact. It just feels like something else. So it's interesting. What you're doing matters. So I think what you said about doing what you love is really important. And I guess
Yeah.
last thing I want to ask you is, do you think you'll show this to your mom and dad?
Um, I don't know, actually. I don't think I said anything particularly crazy, actually. And I think that I mean, if they see this, they probably heard me say crazier things. Um,
Yeah.
uh, yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I'll ask them about it. I'll say I got interviewed by a podcast, and
Yeah. Do
they
you think
could,
they'd be interested in being on the podcast?
uh, maybe. I don't know. I'll ask if they would be. I could also hook you up with a few other people that may be interested actually in being on the podcast.
Sure,
Uh,
I'd love to have anyone. I mean, you saw my rule that I made for myself, right? I will interview anyone in the world who wants to be interviewed at least once. That's my
yeah.
rule. So if you ask for an interview, I got to give you an interview. So,
And I'd also be happy to help with anything surrounding the podcast because I think podcasting is very interesting,
mhm.
um, and very cool. Well, it was very nice talking to you. I'm very happy to have this offer.
Mhm.
It's a bit unexpected, but I'm very happy about it. So,
Well, thanks for saying yes, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's
no
The
problem.
hardest part.
I,
I
I'm
want to
happy.
just close off on one thing actually I want to share. M-Test, Adam. I recommend you watch his episode 7. But I think did I mention that his dad texted him and after the podcast and said that he understood him as his son better. He feels like he understands him better after seeing our podcast episode. So I realized that's an impact I can have on families, which is that, because think about it, a lot of the conversation topics won't come up between me and my brother or me and my dad that would come up with me and a friend. But if we then record it and my dad sees it, then he learns about me as a person in ways that would not have happened one-on-one, right?
Yeah, very fascinating. Oh well.
Yeah.
See you around. Thank you so
See you
much.
around. Thanks.
Bye.
See
Have a
you,
nice day.
Harrison. Bye. Yep.